Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 5. Five
Oh
time,
yeah.
five time, five time, five time. I lost count 5 time. Episode 5 of Pigskin Glory. As always, I'm your host, Vinny Vincent, and joining me for live from Seattle, he's not sleepless, he's on vacation, Chris K. And all,
Greetings from the land of the 12th, man. 12s.
and also joining
And
us on the
some
West
hateful
Coast, where it's still
rebels
joining
in
us on the West Coast,
Seattle.
where it's still daylight, maybe, Charles. This episode, we're going to be looking at November 11th through the 20th, and I know it's being uploaded a little late when you talk about those dates, but the truth is that it's just hard to get everybody together with our schedules, so we'll do it as quick and best as we can. So let me go ahead and share the screen so you all can see what we're talking about, and we may have Mark join us a little later. But let's go ahead and move in. We, as always, are on Facebook, Pigskin Glory, football 50 years ago today. And we begin on Tuesday, November 11th. Veterans Day, 1975. A lot of news here, so we're going to go ahead and click on the newspaper. And we're going to look at upsets confuse the bowls as conference champs hold only sure bets. Remember, there are a lot less bowls, Charles, in 1975, but with some of the upsets and stuff going on, especially Oklahoma going down, the bowl games could be looking a lot different in 1975.
And how's that, Vinny?
And then
Oklahoma was upset by Kansas. USC's lost 2 in a row.
I know Penn State they lost to NC State not that long ago.
Yep.
Now, Chris, the other big news of the day is John Robinson will become the new head coach of the USC Trojans as John McKay is on his way to Tampa Bay. So out with one John, in with another John.
Well, you can change the coach, but it's probably going to be the same. His name is John, and his Trojans are going to run. But Ricky Bell's probably not going to come back, so he'll have to find his next star back.
Now, Charles, different John Robinson. Is USC going to continue to be a power in the West, or is this John going to flush the team down the drain?
After that, as far as USC goes, that coach should not have made that announcement before the season ended, and it's shown the last couple of games where they lost and embarrassed. But with this new coach, surely the Trojans can bounce back. Like normally, I would say, "Don't call me Shirley," but on this day, November 11th, ABC episode of Happy Days did feature LeVon Shirley as guest star for the first time.
Interesting little news here, Chris. Woody Hayes, the head coach of Ohio State's top-ranked Buckeyes, he lashed out, faulting National Collegiate Football Championship playoff against the idea of holding a tournament. He is in favor of the archaic system used in 1975 of the bowl games and having pollsters vote. Do you think he's stuck in the past, or is Woody Hayes unable to think about the financial windfall the NCAA has achieved since implementing the playoff in the 21st century?
I think he might be stuck a little in the past because there's no reward to do other stuff like Ohio State will never get to see him play in A&M or maybe in Arizona State. And you think maybe one day Buckeye fans would actually kind of like to travel to Miami or New Orleans?
The last piece of news on this paper, record reception by Colts Carr hushes coaches at grandstand. That, of course, being the 90-yard touchdown that we featured in This Date in Touchdown History. Burt Jones to Roger Carr in the Colts' victory over Buffalo.
Well, it wasn't going to change the outcome. 90 yards, 89 yards. The Bills still blew the lead. It's not like 1 yard would have changed that.
All right, let's take a look at the NFL standings now after week. What was this week? Week 8. Your Minnesota Vikings in the National Conference are still undefeated, so they're still the number 1 seed. Your 2 and 3 seeds would depend between St. Louis and Los Angeles, depending on what tiebreakers were used in 75. And then your wild card team would be the Redskins. Regardless of who the 2 seed is, Washington can't go to St. Louis, so they would be going to Los Angeles under this format. Or I'm sorry, no, Washington would be going to Minnesota. My bad. Washington would be going to Minnesota. Charles, St. Louis and Los Angeles. Does it matter which team is the home team in this playoff game?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it matters at this point. I mean, great teams will always find ways to win, whether it's at home or in enemy territory.
Chris,
and ironic you mentioned St. Louis. And ironic you mentioned St. Louis, Washington, because that's the big game on the 16th.
Chris, in the old group format before we started doing the podcast, we had posted our 1975 Super Bowl predictions as if it were really 1975, and I picked Dallas and Oakland. Chris, right now, Dallas is out of the playoffs. They could miss the playoffs for the second year in a row. Does the NFL need to add more playoff teams?
I think they need to in general because not so much for the Dallas age, but look at the AFC Central. One of those teams is going to miss the playoffs, and yet they could, in a just world, have a chance of making a Super Bowl run, but one of Cincy or Houston, or God forbid Pittsburgh, is going to miss the playoffs.
Over in the American
Conference? The Houston Rockets could, the Houston Oilers, could be 11-3 and yet not make the playoff because both Cincy and Pittsburgh won 12 games.
Over in the American Conference, as Charles just mentioned, you have the Pittsburgh Steelers at 7-1, as are the Miami Dolphins, who've won 7 in a row. Then the Oakland Raiders, who beat Miami in Week 1, are 6-2. They'd be your 3 seed. Your wildcard team right now is Cincinnati. Cincinnati can't go to Pittsburgh, so they would be going to Miami, and Oakland would have to go to Pittsburgh. How does this rule that divisional opponents can't play each other hurt Oakland, Charles?
Hurt the way to all that much here. And they're probably glad the fact that we playing Pittsburgh in round 1 and not have to worry about any immaculate receptions this time around.
Now, Chris, Miami, being the second seed right now, would host Cincinnati because of the divisional rule. Does that give the Dolphins an edge getting the weaker team?
I don't know because they did meet 2 years ago, but Miami was much stronger and Cincy a little weaker. This year, the Dolphins, even though they're 7-1, they don't have those key guys from their 72 and 73 championships. Cincy seems a little stronger, and plus, Miami has lost at the Orange Bowl, so they don't have that home invincibility.
All right, we have more news from around football to talk about on this Tuesday, November 11th. Ed Jeter helped Navy 11 nail winning season with his tackles. Charles, the service academies aren't as good as they were back in the 40s and 50s, but they're still a fun team to watch. And whether it's Ed Jeter or anybody else playing defense, how important is it for a Navy or an Army to be in the forefront of college football?
At the very least, boost morale for those who are serving in the military, whether it's in the Army and or the Navy, or maybe or both. Allow the football teams to be all they can be, and aiming high.
Chris, looking at this next story, upsets add to bowl confusion. The Peach and Sugar Bowls, January 1st Cotton, Orange, and Rose Bowls are all looking for their teams. Right now, it's really up in the air. If Ohio State beats Michigan and Nebraska beats Oklahoma, look for Nebraska, Alabama in the Orange Bowl and Oklahoma in the Sugar Bowl. Michigan or Notre Dame in the Cotton Bowl. Forget about Oklahoma in the Cotton Bowl in any case. If Michigan beats Ohio State and Oklahoma beats Nebraska, how about Oklahoma, Ohio State in the Orange Bowl, and Alabama in the Sugar and Nebraska in the Cotton? Florida or Georgia could end up in the Gator Bowl.
Thank goodness the Big Ten finally decided to allow other teams to go to bowl games, because if it was just the usual one team goes to Pasadena, well, then basically it just feels like the other bowls would be just a little predictable.
Something else you can look at if you want to go to this page is the 1975 schedules for the leading area and national college football teams.
That wasn't right now. The Buckeyes are still number 1 at 9-0. The Cornhuskers also 9-0, and the Aggies are still the only other undefeated team at 8-0. I stand corrected. Arizona State, even though they're 8th ranked, are 9-0.
The big news on the second page is a continuation of some of the stories, but how about Mercury Morris of Miami asking for a trade? He's frustrated. He says he wants to play for some other national football team. It doesn't matter that the Dolphins, Charles, are 7-1. He doesn't want to be in Miami anymore. Mercury Morris is known for talking a lot. Is this just talk, or is he seriously want to get out of South Beach?
It's pretty tough to tell, but I think he knows that he cannot quit one team and bargain with another ball club. Ask Kurt Flood about that. Although Messerschmidt and McNally are awaiting a hearing in about a month as to whether they'll become eligible for free agency, playing out their option year. See what Kent Douglas may have to play out his option year with the Miami, depending on what type of contract situation he's in, and then we'll see if the man to be traded or go to another club is for real or not.
Now, Chris, he says he's being systematically eliminated from the offense. Benny Malone is getting a lot of carries, rushing for yards. Mercury shared the backfield with Jim Kick and Larry Zonka in the past. What's the difference now with Benny Malone compared to those two?
I think there's another factor that the article does not mention. Don Nottingham.
That's true. What about Mercury's age? Is that having something to do with it?
Well, that might be something. Remember, Benny Malone is a lot younger, and I don't know if this means anything, but in the sea of hands, it was Benny Malone who got those key carries late in that game.
All right, we've talked a lot about the injuries that are going on in professional football. Billy Kilmer is going to get a second examination after he received a mild separation of his right shoulder. Charles, what can be done to protect these quarterbacks? Detroit's lost both their quarterbacks. We've had other teams like San Francisco and New England have injury issues. Washington now suffering their Super Bowl quarterback, Bill Kilmer's down. What, if anything, can be done to help protect these throwers?
That thing you just touched up on. There's a reason why my mother would have never let me play in football, because you just touched up on it. That being said, for those players whose mothers did let them play in football, they probably need some better conditioning skills, better workout regimens, and in some cases, if they got cracked rib or something, maybe wear a flak jacket underneath their jerseys.
That is something that will be a big story in the 1979 playoffs when Dan Pastorini puts one on. That's still 4 years away. Dwayne Thomas has been recently let go from his team. He was dropped in unexpectedly on the Washington Redskins looking for a job. Chris, Thomas, Washington, does that go together?
Evidently, it does not.
Charles, the big thing, though, is that he's not a member of their team, so the NFL headquarters have not cleared him to visit anybody. Could Washington get in serious trouble out of this visit?
I guess if the NFL has a similar type of reserve clause that Major League Baseball has right now, then Washington could be in some kind of trouble if one player quits at one team and bargains with the Redskins.
Definitely a lot of news this midweek here after 8 weeks of the NFL season. College is gearing up for potential bowls, and we have a new cover photo, and that being this Dallas Cowboy Kansas City Chief Monday night game, which if you want to watch the Pigskin Glory cast, watch that game and react to it, you can find it on my Patreon site. There will be a link in the description. But here is just some of the pounding that Roger Staubach took on Monday night, November 10th, 1975.
And you're still understanding this could be a season killer for the Cowboys unless they get hot over these next month and a half.
Still on November 11th, the St. Louis Cardinals have released veteran running back Ken Willard, who also played for your 49ers in the late 60s and early 70s. He's been on injured reserve the whole season. Charles, not a big deal considering he hasn't played, but is there a market somewhere for Ken Willard?
Well, how many years does Ken Willard play, and how old is he?
Let's put it this way, Charles. He's been around since the mid-'60s. He was actually the 49ers' all-time touchdown leader until Roger Craig and Jerry Rice.
And then there could be another NFL team that could be looking for a running back for a stretch drive. And if Ken Willard is deemed healthy enough to play, then somebody will take a chance on him.
And St. Louis doesn't. And St. Louis isn't going to need him because they've got Jim Otis and Terry Metcalf.
Real quick, it's now Wednesday, November 12th, and Ithaca and Widener have been selected to participate and host the first round competition in the Division III championships. All three schools, so there are three schools, Wittenberg, Ithaca, and Widener. All three schools are undefeated and ranked 1, 2, 3 respectively, so that's a no-brainer that they're the first three home teams. Ithaca, let's see, Wittenberg was the NCAA champion in 73. The Ithaca Bombers, which is a school just about 2 hours south of where I live, was a runner-up to Central College of Pella, Iowa in the 1974 playoff game. The playoffs begin November 22nd and the semifinals 29th, with the championship going to be played in Phoenix City, Alabama on the December 6th.
Will probably draw better crowds than some World Football League games.
Ithaca College, which competed in a second straight undefeated regular season by walloping Rochester Tech 41-0, continues as the leader in the weekly rating for the Lambert Bowl. The Bombers, with an 8-0 record, received 6 of 7 first-place votes and a total of 69 points. Widener, 7-0, was second with 64 points, followed by C.W. Post, Williams, and Albright. Division III
no truth to the rumor that the Lambert Bowl. No word if Jack Lambert will be present for that one.
Division III football is something that's near and dear to my heart, as I went to Brockport State for a little while in 1999, and those are the kids that are playing for it for love. Very few, if any, will ever make it to professional football, but it is definitely something where if you live near a Division III school, you should check it out, whether you live in 1975 or 2025. The Philadelphia Eagles signed running back George Amundsen, former first-round draft choice of the Houston Oilers, and defensive end Dan Ratliff, formerly of the World Football League's Philadelphia Bell. To make room for that, they dropped running back John Tarver and defensive tackle Roosevelt Manning. The Atlanta Falcons have put cornerback Ron Mabra on the injured reserve and waived wide receiver Gerald Tinker and running back Oscar Reed. The Bears, meanwhile, signed center Dan Neal, formerly of the Colts, and placed defensive lineman Mel Tom on waivers. Now, Chris, these are smaller name players that are moving around, but of note, the interesting one is the World Football League signing. After that case cleared the courts, those players are free to sign with the NFL.
Philadelphia needs all the help they can get at this point, considering they're basically the odd man out in that division.
Charles, looking at the injuries lower on the page, St. Louis tight end Jackie Smith and defensive end Ron Jankowski are listed as doubtful against Washington on Sunday. Buffalo Bills quarterback Joe Ferguson has been released from Mercy Hospital in Buffalo after an overnight stay for observation, and Pittsburgh Steelers running back Rocky Bleier is out against Kansas City on Sunday with a pulled hamstring. Injuries are always a part of the NFL, and we're in mid-November, so they're no different this year.
And whoever wins games is going to be the one that withstands the injury the most. It becomes a war of attrition, as it were. I'm sorry. I'm not too worried about this Pittsburgh Steelers player being injured. It's if Terry Bradshaw or Franco Harris get injured, there'll be time for Steelers fans to worry.
Now it's time for Thursday, November 13th, and we're going to start right off with the transactions, Chris. The Baltimore Colts have placed All-Pro middle linebacker Mike Curtis on the injured reserve list, and Atlanta has placed wide receiver Gerald Tinker on waivers. They have signed former Buffalo Bill receiver Frank Pitts. Big moves? What about that Colts injury to Mike Curtis?
Well, it's terrible timing considering the Colts are on a nice hot streak, but because they do have the sack pack up front, as crucial as Mike Curtis was in the early 70s, Baltimore at least has their sack pack pass rush, so they have some reinforcements in Baltimore.
And who knows? When the Atlanta Falcons signing Frank Pitts, the Falcons are hoping that they'll get a bowl of cherries out of Pitts.
Charles, Frank Pitts could definitely be a big helping hand for rookie quarterback Steve Bartkowski. Atlanta definitely needs some help for him.
Absolutely.
Moving on to Friday, November 14th, the Bills and Bengals preview for this coming weekend. Will the Bills' patchwork quilt be ripped to shreds by the Bengals for Monday Night Football, Chris?
Well, the Buffalo pass defense has basically been their biggest bugaboo. It's the reason they blew that Baltimore game. It was the reason they blew the Giants game. And Ken Anderson is definitely an upgrade over Craig Morton, and it's in Cincinnati, who only loses to Pittsburgh. And given the state of the AFC East, it could within a week the Bills could go from first in the division to third in their own division, and again, one wild card.
Charles, looking at here's an interesting. This was in the Buffalo area newspaper that day. What do talent scouts do? This is the same kind of thing that could be added for NFL scouts. What do they do, and who do they find? We're looking at Buffalo scouts Harvey Johnson and Albert DeBenion and Stu Barber. They're all former players. Harvey Johnson played in the 40s with the New York Yankees football team. Meanwhile, DeBenion and Barber played for the Bills in the 60s. So this is a nice little interesting piece on what do talent scouts do, and what do you think it takes to become a successful talent scout in pro sports?
It's always kind of like in my line of work right now. I'm a talent intelligence researcher for a hot AI company, and my job is to find the best possible talent out there for various job openings, like software engineers, AI engineers, that sort of thing. And they have to have the right skill set. Talent scouts are the sports version of sourcers and recruiters, if you will. They probably go to college football games or high school games across the country, find the best possible talent out there. They probably get some tips from a couple of insiders of some key players to look out for. And if the scouts like what they see, then they start the process of trying to recruit them, draft them.
That's a very interesting answer. I never would have thought of it that way. When you think about there are scouts basically in every line of work. Now, Chris, the Ivy League. In 2025, the Ivy League got to participate in the FCS playoffs for the first time, although Harvard was very much an embarrassment today. But back then, it was the title, and that was it. The Ivy League title is within the Bruins' grasp, that being the Browns, or the University of Brown. We're looking also at Harvard here. What does the Ivy League mean to college football?
It's about the love of the game, and that it's not all about bowls and championships like it used to be. Remember, this is a league whose most famous game to date was a game that did not end with a winner or a loser, but it still has the lore of another high-scoring game.
If you think back to the early days of college football, although college football was invented by Rutgers and Princeton, of course, is one of the ancient eight, and it was schools like Yale, Harvard, Dartmouth, Brown, that really dominated football, Columbia, Penn, in the early days, Cornell. All right. The Bills are given a one-day look at WFL fugitive. Let's take a look at who this is. Ike Thomas, defensive back, formerly who played for Dallas and Green Bay, has been in the World Football League. Lou Saban's bringing him in for a look since he was a rookie with Dallas in 1971, returning 2 kickoffs for touchdowns. Is this a smart thing for NFL teams to do, to bring the guy in, take a look at him, and potentially sign him or not? Charles.
Yes, because sometimes that...
Yeah, I do agree. But that one, WFL fugitive right there, that could be a little bit misleading. Because when you think of the word fugitive, you think of someone who's committed a more serious crime other than bypass leaving the NFL for what he thought to be higher pay in the WFL. But if this guy has some more serious issues, I would not consider signing him. But because his only crime was going into the WFL, I say give him a chance.
Chris, J.D. Hill was in a sweatsuit for the rest of the squad during practice on Thursday. John Holland is still working, and he was a custom wide receiver spot. This would be a big hole for the Bills when they play the Bengals Monday night if they don't have Hill.
It wouldn't help, but remember, offense has not been the issue. Remember, they still scored all 30-plus points yesterday in their last 2 losses anyway, and even if J.D. Hill suited up, unless he can play defense, how is that going to change?
Charles, Joe Ferguson, the NFL's #1 passer, and right corner Dwight Harrison were back in the lineup for practice. Fergie suffered a mild concussion. Remember, it's 1975. They don't have the same concussion protocols. How could that potentially disrail the Bills on Monday if Ferguson isn't in the right mind?
Is he the quarterback, Ferguson?
Quarterback.
Buffalo.
What? He's the backup quarterback for Buffalo.
No, Joe Ferguson's the starter. The backup, I'm not sure who the backup is right now.
I'll tell you what, if Ferguson can't go, then the Bills are going to have a big feast on the Buffalo Bills for dinner.
If Joe Ferguson can't play, O.J. Simpson might literally have to touch the ball on every play.
Taking a look around the league.
I can tell you now, the Bills-Bengals game is sold out. So those in WKRP in Cincinnati, I'm sorry, that was 3 years away. But those in Cincinnati will get a chance to watch the game.
Chris, taking a look around the league, Green Bay has signed former Atlanta Falcon receiver Gerald Tinker. Remember, we had just noticed that he was put on waivers from the Falcons the other day, and they've placed Kent Gatos on injured reserve. So Green Bay making some moves.
Green Bay needs somebody, anybody, to throw the ball to.
We've already talked about that. William Sullivan News becoming the full majority owner of the Patriots. Lastly, from this paper, Hal Stingert, cornerback with the Hawaiians of the now defunct World Football League, was signed to a free agent contract by the San Diego Chargers. Stringer intercepted 5 passes in 10 games last year in the World Football League.
Chargers are literally the worst team in football. It can't make them any worse.
Yep. All right, let's move along and see if there's any other news before we get into the weekend's action here. Yes, the Syracuse Orangemen. So, nobody defense can't stop SU. Let's see. A week ago, it was reported Syracuse University's football team had an open date, which was good, but that open date was favored to beat the Orangemen by 6 points. One reader, Craig Johnson, wrote a note that basically kind of said that he had to classify the treatment of Syracuse as a cheap shot. Okay, so this is an opinion piece, and the reader got offended. Now, in 1975, it's not like 2025 where everybody gets offended at everything. What do you think about people writing into newspapers when they're offended by a sports columnist or opinionist, like Steve Weller is, making jokes about their favorite team? Chris?
Well, considering that sports news was basically local and the minimum, it's basically the best way you can go at it. And it's kind of weird that he says that Syracuse would be a 6-point underdog to the bye week, considering they gave Penn State fits not that long ago.
Charles?
You had to remember there was no ESPN in 1975. That won't be for another 4 years. No Big Ten Sports Network, no NFL Network, no MLB Network. So as Chris said, the sports media was only looking at the local and mid-market. And the only controversial sports figure that sports commentator can think of is Howard Cosell.
You are looking live. NFL transactions for Friday, November 14th.
Same transactions we just discussed.
We already mentioned them in the Buffalo area newspaper, so we can move on. And that should bring us to... Nope. Former baseball player and football player. He was a two-sport athlete. Garland Buckeye passed away at the age of 78. Former professional baseball and football player died Friday in his summer home at Stone Lake, Wisconsin. Buckeye lived with his daughter, Miss Marilee Pomerantz, in Richmond, and from 1925 to 27, he pitched for the Cleveland Indians. In one game, he struck out Babe Ruth twice. During those same years, he played professional football for the old Chicago Cardinals of the NFL. He also played baseball under Casey Stengel for the Toledo Mudhens of the American Association. Following an athletic career, he operated the Rhinelander Brewery in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, and afterwards was the owner of GM Buckeye Motors in Toledo, Ohio. He retired in 1950, spending his time raising and judging bird dogs, hunting, and fishing. Guys, a two-sport athlete in the 1920s isn't as uncommon as one would think. Jim Thorpe played 3 sports, but still, for a guy like Garland Buckeye to be a two-sport athlete and then go on to have such a wonderful career after baseball and football with the brewery and the car dealership, this is definitely a 50th anniversary of a sad passing in the world of sports, especially in the Wisconsin area.
It is kind of a success story because he managed his money wisely. And keep in mind, back in the day, sports athletes were not paid all that much. Remember 1975 in baseball, a ball player made on average $45,000 a year. The average net salary in the United States was around maybe $15,000. So actually making just 3 times that of a working man's salary. It's not like what it is now. But Garland Buckeye guy managed his money wisely and did pretty good.
All right, now moving on to Saturday, November 15th. It's we're going to look at the New York City area high school football. A kind of Providence looks over Brown these days. Actually, that's more Ivy League action. As Brown's hopes for its first ever Ivy League title rides on the arm of quarterback Bob Bateman. No word if he's related to Jason and Justine Bateman, but. Okay, CW Post didn't post for the postseason play. That's a lot of posts here in the world of high school football in New York. Let's zoom in and take a look at the grid line. The Pittsburgh Steelers are favored by 11. It's a little blurry, so I'll try to read this best I can over Kansas City. Detroit, it's a 6-point favorite of Green Bay. Take a look at some of these spreads. The Rams, 10.5 over Atlanta. Dallas by 4.5 over New England. The Giants, 3.5 over Philadelphia. Minnesota, 16.5 over New Orleans. That's basically telling New Orleans not to even bother showing up. The Colts are 4-point favorite over the Jets. Miami's 4-point over Houston. Oakland, 21-point favorite over Cleveland. San Francisco, 9.5 over Chicago. Denver by 6 over San Diego. St. Louis, 3.5 over Washington. And Chris, Cincinnati is favored by 3.5 over Buffalo. Who are you taking and giving the points to on this?
Monday night game or any upsets in general?
Any upsets in general. What is your upset pick? Who is going to not just beat the spread but win the game?
I think Houston can beat Miami. I think the Dolphins have kind of taken advantage of a bad schedule. Houston's played a tougher schedule. Miami, outside of Buffalo, they haven't really beaten anybody outside of that Buffalo game. In Houston, and remember, Miami doesn't have all their guns, and Houston wants to beat somebody. So I take the Oilers.
Charles, what about you? What would be a good upset if you were looking? I know you're not a gambler, but if you were looking at these betting lines, which one would you think is there's no way that team's going to win by that many points?
The Houston Oilers might upset Miami. They are home against the Miami Dolphins. The Houston Oilers might give the Dolphins fits. And as far as the point spread, I see it with the Raiders 21-point favorite over Cleveland. I hate to think what the point spread is, and the Minnesota Vikings were hosting the 0-8 Cleveland Browns, who scored just 82 points all season.
Browns actually played Minnesota in September.
I want to make a
quick... I wonder what the point spread was that game.
Probably lower since it was
what I
early.
Said earlier, CW Post is an NCAA Division III school. They are not a high school, and I apologize to alumni from CW Post before we get your cards and letters. It's 1975. Mail them to Nowheresville Bi-Week University. All right, we got a preview of the Eagles and Giants game after Sweeney versus the Giants. Another Sweeney versus the Giants. What does that mean? Let's see. Dan Ratliff. Nope, that's not. It's not Ratliff. Oh, and where's Sweeney now? Sorry. Sweeney got into 3 more games. Clovis Sweeney. Perhaps a few Jets fans will share Walt Michaels' fond memories of this man who stimulated a few chuckles in our town 4 years ago. So, apparently he now plays for the Eagles. And Boozer is the starting halfback in place of Mike Garrett. Is that Mike Garrett or...
Carl Garrett.
Emerson Boozer will start. Carl Garrett.
Carl Garrett.
So Emerson Boozer's getting the start for Charlie Winter's Bengals. And let's take a look at the cartoon here, Charles. One guy's talking sports. They got me talking to myself. Looks like it's Joe Namath of the Jets. Allow if any team can average 19.9 points per game. The opposition you see in a much bigger, darker uniform, 30.1 points. And then Joe goes on to say that's not bad in this league, is it? Then why can't we win more than 2 out of 8 games, I ask you. And you then see him looking at the opposing players' cleats, and he goes, I guess there's more to these games than completing passes.
Look at the opposition. It's hyped out. Now, I get a feeling this player may make Ed Too Tall Jones look like Ed Too Short Jones.
No doubt.
He's a big dude.
NFL transactions on this Saturday. Houston, veteran end Willie Frazier has been signed with them. Linebacker Ralph Simdrich has been released. San Diego has they cut wide receiver Mel Baker, and they've signed rookie defensive back Hal Stringer. Remember, he of the Hawaiians that we talked about. He's a rookie in the NFL, but he, of course, played a season and a half with the Hawaiians. Philadelphia has released veteran defensive end Joe Jones, and they've signed reinstated tackle Roosevelt Manning, also from the World Football League. Atlanta has placed Oscar Reed on the non-recallable waivers, meaning he's gone, regardless of if anybody takes him. Reed has announced his retirement from professional football, so I don't think you'll see any teams taking him. We are moving into the Saturday football or college football action. We still have one more. Preventive heart surgery for Rams owner Carroll Rosenblum, as he's arrived in Georgia Friday night. His wife's name is Georgia, so that could be taken in different ways. But the surgery was planned for Monday morning. The Rams, of course, he recently traded away the Baltimore franchise for the Los Angeles franchise. And I don't know, not a lot to say about that other than preventive heart surgery in 1975. I'm not sure.
Our player, they have a good surgery, and he'll be back up and running very soon.
All right, Chris.
Going with that about Miami, me, and Houston, then it's gonna be like the unstoppable force. That's the Miami Dolphins, scoring 249 points. Only Buffalo have more against the immovable logic. The Houston Oilers, only the steel curtain defense, and the Minnesota has allowed fewer points this year than Houston. And at the Astrodome, if Houston can neutralize Miami on defense, then the Oilers have a shot.
All right, Chris, we move on to the college games now. Notre Dame at Pittsburgh. The Panthers, claw number 9, Notre Dame, 34-20. Remember when Ricky Bell ran wild against the Irish at South Bend? Well, Tony Dorsett at Pitt Stadium went above and beyond, rushing for an incredible, get this, 303 yards. Where is Rudy when you need him? To think this same Notre Dame team had just stymied the nation's number 1 rushing attack just 7 days ago. Chris, Notre Dame's rushing defense, what happened?
It's weird. They play Georgia Tech, who averages close to 400 rushing yards per game. They held them way down at home. But then they go to Pittsburgh and, not 303 yards to a team, 303 yards to one guy. Charles, by the way,
we've talked about the great running backs in college football in 1975. We haven't mentioned Tony Dorsett. Should we be talking more about the running back from Pitt, especially going into 1976?
303 yards are damn well better. Who knows? Tony Dorsett is the guy that could do a 99-yard touchdown run. I wonder why.
Auburn and Georgia. Good, clean, old-fashioned hate. The Bulldogs tamed the Tigers 28-13. It's the Deep South's oldest rivalry, Chris. Auburn shot themselves in the foot with a cannon thanks to 2 penalties that kept a key field goal drive alive for Georgia, as well as a brutal fumble at the Georgia's 8-yard line.
Well, Auburn's certainly having this is Shug Jordan's final season after 25 years, and it has been this is it for him. Then wow, it's been a farewell to forget. Fumbles and penalties. Basically, like I said, they're just shooting themselves in the foot.
And they're not shooting themselves in the foot, but an elbow injury to one of the key players proved to be a crucial turning point for the Bulldogs.
Hill's elbow blow, a crucial turning point for Georgia. You got to wonder if he doesn't get hurt, if the game doesn't go a different way. But as a Georgia fan, I'm definitely happy to hear about any wins they get back in the day. Minnesota and Ohio State. The number 1 ranked Ohio State Buckeyes ground the Gophers 38-6. Archie Griffin ran 23 times for 124 yards, his 31st straight 100-yard game. Pete Johnson scored his 22nd touchdown and set a new Big Ten single-season record. All this set the stage for the Buckeyes' game of games. Michigan at the Big House. Charles, Ohio State. They're number 1. They've got Michigan left on their schedule. Is Archie Griffin going to win his second Heisman?
I have a feeling he's going to. Also intrigued about the Buckeyes. Normally a team that's no more for their rushing yards, and they did have 360 rushing yards. They also have 131 passing yards, which is kind of high by Buckeye standards, knowing that Woody Hayes' disdain for staying for the bomb.
Chris, it surprises me that Woody Hayes is against a playoff when his team is playing like this. Don't you think that a playoff could potentially be an easy run for the Ohio State Buckeyes in 75?
Yes, I mean, you think maybe they'd like to, you play all these West Coast teams. You think maybe they like to get a crack at a Nebraska or an A&M?
Southern Mississippi versus Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Number 5 Alabama clips the Golden Eagles 27-6. Ground and pound, Bama got 2 touchdowns through the air thanks to the pass-catching combination of Richard Todd and Ozzie Newsome. Combined with a defense that made 2 key 4th down stops and forced a goal line fumble, the Tide are once again Sugar Bowl bound, Charles.
Good for the Roll Tide. And why do we get the feeling this is not going to be the last time the Roll Tide will be in a bowl game in the coming decades?
By the way, Vinny, just remember those names. Richard Todd, Ozzie Newsome.
We will be seeing a Richard Todd touchdown in this date in touchdown history, as it was featured for this day, November 29th, 1975. So in episode 6, we'll be watching that. Michigan and Illinois. Number 4, Michigan fights past the Illini 21-15 in Champaign. The Wolverines survived 4 of their own fumbles thanks to Illinois' generosity. 3 interceptions, setting up a UM touchdown with pass interference and fumbling on 4th and inches. Once again, it's Michigan, Ohio State for the Rose Bowl, but this time it's not all or nothing, as the loser has the consolation prize of playing the Nebraska-Oklahoma winner in the Orange Bowl. Charles, the Big Ten has opened up to allow more than just one bowl team to make a bowl. Is that a good thing or a bad thing for the Big Ten?
It could be a good thing. They're going to give the Big Ten schools much more opportunities to win more bowl games. But that could be a bad thing as well, because they could both lose their bowl games. It's a high risk, high reward thing.
Chris, Michigan survived a scare in this game. Gordon Bell running for a couple touchdowns. Rick Leach ran for a touchdown. Illinois then came from behind and made it close, but the turnovers of the Illini and the pass interference penalty that set up the Michigan score. Michigan, are they in trouble against Ohio State playing like this?
Ohio State had their shaky game a couple weeks ago. Michigan's had a close call with Minnesota. And it's always very treacherous when you're on the road a week before that game.
And the Wolverines committed 6 fumbles, lost 4 of them, while Illinois only fumbled 3 times and 1 loss. So yes, Michigan could be in kind of trouble here. They got away with those fumbles in this game. They can't get away with it if they take on somebody of the Buckeyes' caliber.
We move now to some Big 8 action. Missouri at Oklahoma in Norman. Number 6 OU survives the Tigers of Missouri 28-27. When the Sooners blew a 20-0 halftime lead after 27 straight Tiger points, it looked like the Sooners, off their Kansas debacle, were about to gift-wrap the Orange Bowl to Nebraska. But little Joe Washington saved the day with a 71-yard touchdown run and the ensuing 2-point conversion. Still, the Tigers had a shot to win with a 40-yard field goal, but missed. The shaky Sooners, for all their inconsistencies, Chris, still have everything to play for next week against Nebraska.
I think that sums up Oklahoma in a nutshell. We've seen that they look wobbly against Colorado. They look wobbly against Miami, Texas, Missouri. But at the same time, this is a team that, they have a senior class that knows how to win. And if there's one thing Barry Switzer's good at, it's just finding ways through Sooner magic.
Charles, a team like Missouri, this ends up becoming their Sugar Bowl, their Orange Bowl. They don't have as much to play for, but when you have the running of Curtis Brown and the passing of Steve Pisarkowitz, Missouri almost pulled it off. Should there be more bowl games for teams like this to get a shot at postseason play?
Maybe a few more bowl games here and there, beside the Cotton Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, the Rose Bowl, all that sort of thing. Now, as far as the Steelers go, as what Chris touched up on, it could have been a potential trap game that Oklahoma might have been looking ahead to Nebraska next week. The Steelers got a big scare against a team that had known to play for its pride, but they escaped.
Charles, it wasn't just a big scare. If Oklahoma lost that game, they literally would have blown the Orange Bowl and they would have had nothing to play for because Nebraska would have already had the Orange Bowl bid a week before they play Oklahoma.
Oh, we.
We now look at the Canadian Football League playoffs in the East Final. Les Alouettes rough up the Rough Riders 20-10. On November 2nd, Ottawa blew away Montreal by 40 points in a showdown for first place plus a bye. Today it was sweet revenge for the Owls. This game, a 6-3 field goal fest midway through the third on two big Montreal plays. Johnny Rogers with a 95-yard punt return, reminiscent of his Nebraska days, and an interception that gave the Owls a short field of just 16 yards to set up their coup de grace score. From losing by 40 to winning by 10, what a difference 2 weeks makes. Montreal now moves on to face Ottawa, Chris, in the Eastern Final.
Actually, this was the East Final.
Sorry,
It's Montreal.
Montreal moves on to the Grey Cup.
So, again, 40-point loss, tempo win. That's a 50-point swing in 2 weeks.
Charles, what happened to Ottawa? How did they go from winning by 40 to losing by 10?
That's football for you. That's sport. The unpredictable nature. You can win games by 45, 50 points one game and then lose a tight one the next week.
Surely, with that many points scored, and you gotta think that there's going to be plenty of touchdowns in the Grey Cup, right?
Yep.
Colorado and Kansas. The number 10th ranked Colorado Buffaloes roamed past the Jayhawks 24-21. Colorado, a team that many wrote off after their Nebraska debacle, got an impressive road win on ABC against the Jayhawks, and Kansas coming off their monumental win against Oklahoma. And while we're talking about this, we do have a touchdown. Charles, Colorado, Kansas, Lawrence, Kansas. What a game this was, huh?
I have a feeling we are. I have a feeling Colorado Buffalo escaped Kansas is with their lives here. Now we'll see if they can go on bigger and better things than odds.
The Big 8 conference victory before 40,120 fans on a regional television audience lifted the Bull hopeful Colorado to an 8-2 record, Chris. They have one game remaining against Kansas State.
Remember, their only two losses are to the big monsters of the Big 8, Nebraska and Oklahoma, but they do that to everybody. So basically, Colorado's no worse than the top 20 program. Unfortunately, they're stuck in the wrong conference.
As you can see here in the third quarter, is that the third quarter? Yes, third quarter. There's a touchdown, Hasselbeck, a 35-yard pass from Dave Williams. Let's take a look at that play, as that was featured as a 1975 touchdown in touchdown of the day. Here it is the coach's film. Williams back to pass, throwing over the middle to tight end Hasselbeck, who breaks the tackle and outruns the Jayhawks into the end zone. And you might recognize the name Hasselbeck as both his sons will play in the NFL. Of course, Matt will famously predict a victory in the playoffs, Charles, against Green Bay that won't exactly go the way he thought it would.
We're the reverse of Joe Namath.
Or Mark Messier.
Just the opposite result. Nice touchdown, though, by Don Hasselbeck. Hasselbeck himself will go on to play in the NFL and actually will play in a Super Bowl.
And remember, that's the Kansas team that beat Oklahoma 7 days ago.
Iowa State versus Nebraska. We go to Lincoln, Nebraska. As the second-ranked Cornhuskers blast the Cyclones 52-0. Big Red looked every bit the part, Charles, of the number 2 team thanks to 2 passing touchdowns and a touchdown run by Vince Ferragamo. Next up, it's Oklahoma when the Orange Bowl bid is up for grabs.
State probably show up in this game today to be quite honest.
Charles, Curtis Craig ran for a couple touchdowns. Vince Ferragamo, of course, Craig scored a couple touchdowns. Vince Ferragamo had 2 passing touchdowns. Iowa State just didn't even get into the anywhere near scoring, and 52-0. Devaney, he's got the Cornhuskers rolling. Is Oklahoma going to be able to compete against them?
That's the Steelers are going to show up or show up. Remember the Cyclone? I don't think the Cyclone have a pretty good record on their account. The Cornhuskers just took care of their business, plain simple. And the Oklahoma Sooners could be hoping Nebraska might get maybe a little too complacent season, you could say, after a blowout win like that. They'll think they're invincible.
Well, let's go down to Austin, Texas. TCU at University of Texas. The number 7 Longhorns tame the Horned Frogs 27-11. The Longhorns, who lost quarterback Marty Akins to a knee injury and got only 41 yards rushing from Earl Campbell, had a tussle against a terrible TCU team. But a stubborn defense and 2 clutch field goals from Russell Erxelben extended the Longhorns' 40-game home winning streak as well as TCU's 20-game losing streak. However, the big question is whether Akins will be good to go at College Station next week versus the Aggies. Chris, TCU is no Texas A&M. Is Earl Campbell's rushing performance and no Marty Akins a worry for concern for the Texas Longhorns?
I think it's a big concern because this game is on the road. Texas has won 40 straight at home, but this is in College Station against the best Aggie team in what feels like forever. And you know the Aggies are chomping at the bit. Plus, they haven't beaten the Longhorns since 1967, but they are chomping at the bit to win that one.
Charles,
Aggies are due to beat the Longhorns at long last.
Charles, there's one name I want you to remember on this TCU team is wide receiver Mike Renfro. Just remember that name.
Mike Renfro, okay.
There would be a controversial playoff non-touchdown in 1979 that he will be a part of. Speaking of Texas A&M, they took on Rice. The number 3 Aggies hoot past the Owls 33-14. The Aggies run for 378 yards but trailed at halftime before a fumble and a 4th down stop on a punt set up 2 quick touchdowns to turn the game around. The stage is now set, Chris, as A&M's biggest game in years against Southwestern Conference heavyweight and bitter rival, the Texas Longhorns.
As I said earlier, A&M, they've had some close calls, but it's like this is their moment. They got a chance to beat Texas. They got a shot at the Cotton Bowl. They're having that like once in a generational season. And going back to what Woody Hayes said, you think the Yankees would like a crack at the Buckeyes?
Charles, you have safety Luther Hayes and linebacker Mark Jackson coming up with huge defensive plays to save the A&M Aggies from potential disaster. They're going to need that plus more against the Longhorns in Texas.
As Chris mentioned, this is a big Texas-sized showdown. One the Aggies have not seen in Ion. It's going to be televised on ABC.
Yes, it is.
The Aggies are ranked 3rd, and the Longhorns are 7th going into this battle in 1975. I had a roommate in college who's a big Texas A&M fan. He's from Brownville, Texas. And we would watch the Texas A&M game every year, whether we were roommates or not. And I can still remember the game in, I believe, 2001, which was a close game, and Texas pulled out. And I just remember not wanting to even talk to my roommate because he was a big 315-pound Texan after that game because it was something that it was one of those games where he was just speechless and quiet for a good half an hour afterwards. All right, Charles.
Isn't this the guy who after that Eagles-Cowboys game in '97, I think wasn't too thrilled about the ending of that one? I think he'd mentioned that story once in the role play.
He's also a Philadelphia fan, and which is weird coming from Texas, but he definitely hates Dallas, and he ripped a magnetized door open after the Eagles missed a field goal on a Monday night game against Dallas. I'm going to have to tell him that he's being talked about in this podcast, make sure he hears it. About 50 minutes in. All right, Charles, it's time to talk about your school. San Diego State versus San Jose State. The Spartans stopped the Aztecs 31-7.
Love them. Love them. Love that. 8-1.
In a battle of 8-1 teams, San Jose trailed 7-0 at halftime before ripping San Diego State for 31 unanswered second half points. San Jose State ran for 322 yards against the number 8th run defense in all of college football, 144 by Rick Kane, and got 3 interceptions from Ed Kertel and held San Diego State to only 4 rushing yards. 4 rushing yards. Charles, tell us about your school.
Love that. Love this performance by my future alma mater. I think the Spartans should be among the top 20 schools in the country at this moment. Give us a shot against some of the tougher teams like Texas A&M, like Oklahoma, like and who knows, maybe the Buckeyes.
How about Arizona State? You got these 2 West Coast teams that are having great years. When you like to see them play each other?
Chris, that brings up an interesting point.
You're right.
that brings up an interesting point, and one we're going to talk about every November in college football: the so-called mid-major schools and where they're placed, where they belong in college football. And there will be some years I'm just going to go off on the whole system and how college football diminishes smaller colleges compared to some of the big boys.
Let's put it this way, Vinny. If the Holiday Bowl existed in 1975, San Jose State would definitely be playing in San Diego.
Pacific.
It's kind of ironic, right? Because before 1989, in college basketball, there was serious talk about eliminating the automatic tournament bid from these smaller conferences and have just the big conferences to have all the big conferences represent all the teams in the tournament until that famous game in 1989 with Dick Vitale almost wore Preston Tillier's uniform after round one against the Georgetown.
It is a huge debate. It's always been that debate of the smaller schools and their place in sports, and how the bigger schools try to create a monopoly and try to use their influence and money to push down the smaller schools. Throughout history, you have BYU coming up in '84, winning a national title. You've got Boise State in the early 2000s, what they did to the big boys of college football. And you've always got these schools that come around. Utah, when Alex Smith was the quarterback, and Urban Meyer was the coach, is coming up and smacking the big boys right in the face. Appalachian State in 2007 beating Michigan. It's going to be a common thread throughout college football history, and they're finally getting some of their just due now with an automatic bid in the playoffs, but I believe there still needs to be more, and I believe that all conferences should have an automatic bid in the college playoffs, not just one for the group of 5 champions. But that
you forgot TCU. You forgot TCU when they had Andy Dalton.
Yeah, but that is a debate that definitely we can have a lot. And in 1975, it's San Jose State, and it's going to keep coming up year after year after year. Let's move on, though. Let's go down to Tempe, Arizona, as Pacific. Speaking of those smaller colleges, is playing Arizona State. The 9th-ranked Sun Devils scorched Pacific 55-14. To say this was a game of many happy returns would be an understatement. Arizona had an incredible 4 return touchdowns. Arizona State's devilish defense scored 3, twice off block punts as well as a pick 6, and Mike Haynes had a 75-yard touchdown return. Mike Haynes, that of the future Oakland Raider fame. And let's take a look if we can find, hold on. There's the scoring summary. Nope, that's
1-9.
Think about that, Charles. 4 return touchdowns by one team.
Wow.
Scoring, 4 return touchdowns. Pacific. They probably should sail out in the Pacific and not come back after a performance like that, Charles.
Wow. All the special teams.
So that's a big day of college football. Of course, there's many, many more games that you can look up. Newspapers, we're going to run over a few of them on your early morning Sunday papers, but it is now November 16th, 1975, Sunday. Before we get into the NFL, let's take a look around Ohio college football recap. As 10 down, a big one to go for the Bucks, that, of course, being the Michigan game. Kent State losing to Miamiville, Ohio, 27-8. Over here, we got, that's Michigan, that's Orange Bowl. Akron bowled out in the final in Moorhead, Kentucky against Moorhead State. And, of course, that would be the University of Phil Simms. Ohio has a lot of small colleges for a smaller
Look at that bottom
state.
Headline. Look at that. By the way, one little bottom headline. Remember when I mentioned USC had lost 2 in a row? They've lost 3 in a row. They lost to Washington.
Huskies stun Trojans in Seattle. Unbelievable. Just a wild day in college football. Not just the big boys playing, but there's college sports all over. College football all over the nation. Now, Charles, we look at some Ohio high school as 8 green players earn all suburban. Let's take a look if there's any names we recognized. Mike Voigt, maybe. Chris Rise, John Manley. I don't recognize any of the names. Ray Hubbard. Moving down. No.
What did the PSA add a couple of years ago? There are more than 400,000 student athletes, and just about all of them will go pros in a different career field.
Yep, that's a good point. It is kind of cool when you come across a player in high school that is a future NFL star, but you got kids that are playing. I played high school football. I played college football. You play for the love of the game. You don't necessarily play because you want to someday be in the NFL, because it's just not. It's not going to happen for the majority. All right, we've talked about Tony Dorsett as he runs Notre Dame out of the bowl. Chris had the post on that one. Here's just another recap. Tony Dorsett's 303-yard game day. Notre Dame is not going to be going to a bowl because of a situation like that. Chris, one player can definitely ruin or destroy a whole team season on a good day. Tony Dorsett is going to be back in 76. What does that mean for college football?
And it means he could be a potential Heisman candidate, because think about all the names we talked about this year. Chuck Muncie, Pete Johnson, Archie Griffin, Ricky Bell, all those guys. They're going to be in the pros. Dorsett's the only one of those guys who's staying.
Charles, can the Heisman Trophy be won 13 months ahead of time in November the year before? Can you put yourself on a map to the point where they have to watch you in the next season?
I don't think it's conceivable to award Heisman trophies a year ahead of time. But do keep an eye on Tony Dorsett. If he ran 300 yards this past week, and he continues playing like this and not get injured, he's gonna be a big favorite to win the Heisman Trophy this next year. Of course, another player can come out of the blue and give Dorsett a run for the money.
And again, Charles, all the star running backs of 1975, other than Tony, all are going to be pro next year.
Yeah. So someone else is going to take over and do his damn best to carry on the legacy, the tradition.
As always, we like to post stuff about high school football. You can follow closer on Sunday mornings. I post St. Edward. This is in Ohio. St. Edward qualifies for the Class AAA Finals against they knock off Newark 19-7. The Eagles, Lakewood, St. Edward advanced. The Eagles, now 11-0, will play Cincinnati Moeller on Friday at the Rubber Bowl in Akron. So just to...
By the way, Cincinnati Moeller, by the way, just remember the name of their head coach, Jerry Faust.
Jerry Faust.
That's a name to remember. Just taking a look at more college football. Remember, Ohio, one of the states that has more college football than any other state other than perhaps maybe Texas or California. Just to look around, some of the schools, South Dakota defeats Youngstown 38-21. Cincinnati over Ohio U 8-3. That is an actual college football score. Dayton over Marshall looks like 29-8. Let me zoom in just a little more without making it too blurry. Eastern Kentucky beats Ashland. Bowling Green, another Ohio school, they knock off Southern Illinois 48-6. Interesting note over here, Harvard beating Brown 43-26. So all those previews for Brown just go up in flames as Harvard comes in and they turn Brown crimson. Yale knocks off Princeton 24-13.
What can Brown do for you? Get torched.
Ole Miss over Tennessee 23-6. Remember, earlier in the season, Tennessee was hanging around. Purdue over Iowa 19-18. Wisconsin and Indiana, they are all fit to be tied, as Chris likes to say, in a 9-9 tie. A lot of college football in mid-November. Games will start to wean out as we get lower in November, though. Again, we saw that Miami of Ohio, the Redskins, as they were known then, overwhelms the Kent Golden Flashes 27-8. Interesting score. Charles, do you ever watch some of the... Obviously, you went to San Jose State, so we know you watch them, but do you ever tune in and watch some of the smaller college football on ESPN?
Oh, I know.
Back then, it was a lot harder to catch those games. You didn't have an ESPN yet. You didn't have the national broadcasts. You had a more regional appetite on ABC and whatnot, but it's nice to see some of those school. Here's another one, Texas Tech. They got 2 quick touchdowns from quarterback Tommy Donovan and 4 field goals from Brian Hall as they defeated defending Southwest Conference champion Baylor 33-10. The Red Raiders of Texas Tech. Here's a preview for the Browns as they may have to swap top draft choice for quarterback if they're going to continue or get back into the action. The quarterback class in '76 not as good, Chris, as some of the previous years. Does Cleveland? They're going to have an early draft choice. Are they going to be looking to trade that pick?
Well, no, because they do have Brian Sipe. So I think it comes down to, do you want to swing for a quarterback, or do Mike Phipps has seen better days, but do you just roll the dice with Brian Sipe at this point? I mean, they drafted him a few years ago.
What about trading to Pittsburgh for a Joe Gilliam?
Well, that would be ironic, going from the Steelers to the Browns, given those teams hate each other.
Other backup quarterbacks that are mentioned in this article is Washington's Joe Theismann. Just imagine how different that would have gone had Cleveland gone after him. What about the Los Angeles Rams' Ron Jaworski? Actually, he's at University of Youngstown right now.
No, Jaworski is on the Rams.
He is on the Rams. Okay. They have James Harris. What about getting a Ron Jaworski? There are some backup quarterbacks that will go on to become famous. The Cleveland Browns just they stuck with their guns, obviously, as we know, Charles. Sticking with Brian Sipe, it worked out for them, but on this day in 1976, they were talking about potential trades.
Wow.
Here's some other just more quick wrap-up of college football. It's off the screen a little bit, but Purdue knocked off Iowa in 1918. Michigan State over Northwestern 47-14. Indiana, Wisconsin, we saw that. That was tied at 9. Well, West Virginia over Richmond 31-13. And Georgia Tech down Navy 14-13.
They still got to play Army.
Now we get into the NFL. There's two massive games, NFL games on Sunday, both of which major divisional implications. Charles, which game is bigger, the Dolphins versus the Oilers or the Redskins and Cardinals?
I have Dolphins and the Oilers.
I have to agree, too, because remember, Washington and St. Louis already played early this year, and it's a division game. Miami-Houston is not a division game. And remember, Washington and St. Louis still have to deal with Dallas. Miami and Houston have similar issues in their own division. They have to deal with Baltimore, Buffalo, and, Pittsburgh and Houston, respectively, and Cincy.
All right, let's get into the games now. NFL Week 9, the Rams and Falcons. The Rams rammed their way past the Dirty Birds 16-7. Los Angeles was ticked off after last week's come-from-ahead loss to San Francisco and took out their frustrations on the Falcons. James Harris threw for 242 yards. Charles, the Rams sacked Pat Sullivan 4 times. Once again, the Falcons were without Steve Bartkowski.
As Quest said, after the Rams lost to the Niners last week, they treated the Falcons like a punching bag to go 7-2 on the season. And all but certain to wrap up the NFC West.
Packers and Lions. Detroit packs up Green Bay 13-10. The first indoor game between these longtime rivals felt like many an outdoor clash at Tiger Stadium. A low-scoring game where the Lions prevailed mainly on the strength of their running game. At 6-3, Detroit is not out of the wild card race, but Dallas's recent stumbles. And Chris, the one of the Redskins and Cardinals are guaranteed to lose today. This is a huge win for Detroit.
They had to get this one because, remember, Dallas beat them earlier this year. But again, Dallas has stumbled, and this is critical. The Lions do play the Cardinals in the final week of the season. That might be for a wild card spot.
Sure. Charles, the Lions are playing without their top 2 quarterbacks. How are they still competitive?
That's why they play the games.
All right, we got the Cowboys and the Patriots. Dallas outlasts New England 34-31. Both starting quarterbacks had eventful days, each throwing 3 touchdowns and taking a combined 10 sacks. The difference in this game, Dallas winning the turnover battle 4-2 to escape in another instance of playing down to their competition. Charles, Dallas, Patriots 4-2 in playoffs, the turnover battle. Could the Cowboys, they won, but they're still looking shaky.
Yeah. The time they've been playing with fire in a turnover battle, but they did escape. And with a 6-3 record, they know they're going to be tied with either St. Louis or Washington for second place, unless the Cards and Redskins finish tied today.
We take a look at this touchdown.
Unlikely, but it could happen.
We take a look at this 34-yard touchdown from Staubach to Michael Irvin. It's always
Drew Pearson.
Yeah. Wrong number 88. My apologies. Drew Pearson. It's always a thing of beauty to watch NFL films highlights of Drew Pearson scoring, the way they put it in slow motion sometimes. This reminds me of the Super Bowl 13 touchdown where he catches it going across the middle and it strides into the end zone.
Toughest wide receiver of his era.
Eagles versus Giants. And shit. Okay, and record. Okay, now the Eagles and the Giants. Philadelphia outkicks the Giants 13-10. The Eagles had lost 3 games in the final seconds this year, including at home against Dallas and St. Louis. But with 28 seconds left, a 30-yard field goal finally got Philly on the right side of a close call. And of course, the Eagles kicker is Horst Mielman, connecting on a windy, closed end of Shea Stadium after the Eagles had pushed the Giants deep in their end and forced a punt. Roman Gabriel, a reverse to Art Malone, set up and who hit wide receiver Charles Smith, chewed up 20 yards to set the stage for Mielman's kick. The Giants were kind of competitive. The Eagles, they're both kind of hanging around that. Are they a good team or are they not? What does this game tell us?
It tells us that for Philadelphia is barely better than the Giants. And here's a fun fact. This win by Philly over the Giants, the Eagles will not lose to the Giants again until November of 1981.
Wow, 6 years. It's a long streak. Not quite as long as the one.
The Eagles are not going on a close game against the Giants in New York, in a not too distant future, right?
Yep.
Right.
All right, Chiefs versus Steelers from Pittsburgh. The Steelers chopped Kansas City 28-3. The Chiefs, coming off of their dramatic Monday Night Football upset, scored first and led for most of the first half, but a Steelers touchdown with 7 seconds before halftime swung momentum, and the Chiefs were outscored 21-0 in the second half. And let's take a look at that touchdown that swung the momentum, a 42-yarder from Bradshaw to Swan. Charles, what do you think of this score?
That's the Pittsburgh Steelers in a nutshell. So Terry Bradshaw leading the offense, and for once, someone other than Franco Harris catches the touchdown. And for the Steelers current defense doing Steelers current defense things, holding the Chiefs to 3 points, sending them rudely back to reality after the emotional high the Chiefs had winning in Dallas.
Now, Chris, this obviously Super Bowl 10 hasn't happened yet. But this touchdown is going to look awfully familiar to one scored in January by the same Steelers team.
Oh, yeah. And it's also, again, look at the situation. Chiefs were leading first half. They're off the Monday night upset. They also beat Oakland and then literally just took the lead just seconds before halftime. And, yeah, that's a total locker room deflator if there ever was one.
Reggie Harrison would
score.
Yeah,
the Chiefs fell flat on their face in the second half.
Reggie Harrison would then score. Stallworth would get a touchdown reception from Bradshaw. And Mike Collier, he of the kick return heroics a couple weeks earlier, will also score a touchdown. All right, the Dolphins and the Oilers. Houston shocks Miami 20-19. It looked like the Dolphins would once again keep rolling along in Don Shula's tradition against another upstart team. But they didn't. Billy White Shoes Johnson had another return touchdown. Bubba Smith, yes, he of Police Academy fame, blocked not 1 but 2 extra points, and Ronnie Coleman scored a dramatic 7-yard touchdown with minutes remaining. Houston showed they can beat football royalty, while also opening up the door for Buffalo and perhaps Baltimore, for that AFC East will not be another Miami coronation. Charles, we've been talking about this game all week. How big of a win is this for the Houston Oilers?
Except for the offense. I really did not. But that is... The Oilers are for real.
And Miami, you think they could have used Zonka, Warfield, or Kick on this day?
And that means the Steelers, the Oilers, the Cincinnati's got to win their ball game today. Which tomorrow is to say against Buffalo.
Now we got the Jets and the Colts. Baltimore smokes Gangrene 52-19. To say the Colts avoided a letdown after last week's 21-point comeback would be an understatement. 225 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns from Burt Jones, 5 sacks of the Jets, 4 takeaways, and a fumble return touchdown. Combined with Miami's loss at Houston and Buffalo facing one-loss Bengals on Monday night, Baltimore all of a sudden could be a factor in the AFC East. Chris, how good are these Colts?
They've been battle tested because remember, right out of the gate, they had to play the Raiders and the Rams and the Bills, and they played their asses off against teams of that caliber. So you figure they're not going to be afraid to play lesser teams. That stretch kind of geared them up, and they still got Miami twice, and they split with Buffalo.
Okay, guys, just go ahead, Charles, talk about this. For whatever reason, I cannot access the comment to show you the touchdown, and we definitely want to see this touchdown because it is a record setter, so I'm going to bring it up here. Roger Carr.
Roger, baby, you can drive.
Last week, the Colts were thunder on the ground and lightning in the air.
All right, we don't need the sound. 90 yards. It broke the record that he and Burt Jones held at 89 yards, and also John Mackey and John Unitas were tied at 89 yards. They go 90 yards on this touchdown against the Jets, and Roger Carr just getting by all the Jets defenders for the long touchdown.
That was last week, Jets last week. Miami, take notes on this Roger Carr guy.
Yeah, he's a Porsche.
Not sure why I couldn't access the comment, Facebook. Get your act together. All right, now we move on to the undefeated Vikings and the New Orleans Saints. Minnesota skulls New Orleans 20-7. 5 Viking turnovers was the only reason this game was relatively close. Remember, they were a 16.5-point favorite. Statistically, this was unbelievably lopsided. 8 sacks for the Purple People Eaters, a 470-60 disparity in yards, and negative net 7 net passing yards for the Aints. Charles, imagine how lopsided this would have been if the Vikings had held on to the ball.
Rather not, if you're a New Orleans fan.
470-60, and this was at home. If they were playing at the Metropolitan Stadium, the Saints might have had to forfeit.
Chris, the Vikings were 16.5-point favorites. Is
Saints
this
players come up with fake calls and fake injuries? I want to play this game today.
Chris, the Vikings were 16.5-point favorites. Is this just another reason why Vegas doesn't know what they're talking about?
Well, in fairness, they outgained them by 410 yards, which on the surface you think would lead to a biblical butt whooping.
Let's look at the Canadian Football League West Final. Saskatchewan versus Edmonton. The Eskimos ride past the Rough Riders 30-18. Saskatchewan led 18-8 after 3 quarters and were poised to avenge their 48-41 special teams debacle of a game at Edmonton a few weeks ago. But it all came undone, Charles, in the fourth quarter thanks to the backup quarterback. Bruce Lemmerman came in for a struggling Tom Wilkinson and led 2 clutch touchdown drives when the Esks sealed the deal with a 72-yard pick six. It marked Edmonton's 3rd straight West crown, Saskatchewan's 3rd straight West final loss, and a 2nd straight Grey Cup between the Eskimos and Alouettes. For the Rough Riders, was this the end of the line for the legendary backfield of Ron Lancaster and George Reed?
And for the Eskimos, it's on to the Grey Cup against Les Alouettes.
Again.
A rematch?
Yeah, they played in 74 and Montreal won that one.
Wow.
Remember, the Raiders are 21-point favorites in this game. As we're going to look at the Browns and Raiders next. Oakland clobbers Cleveland by 21, 38-17. The winless Browns played over their heads for 2.5 quarters, tied at 17, but then the roof fell in. The ref probably fell too, with 21 unanswered Raider points on a day Ken Stabler threw 4 touchdowns and Cleveland had 4 turnovers. Even for an 0-9 team, the schedule has done Cleveland no favors. All but one of their games have been against teams that are better than 500. Chris, the Browns, could they go 0-14? Be the first to do it.
Well, they still have to play Pittsburgh again. They still got to play Cincinnati again, and they still got to play Houston again. I think they're best. But they do play the Saints next week, and as we just saw with New Orleans, I think the Saints could lose to Edmonton. I think New Orleans might be Cleveland's best shot.
Charles, we haven't looked at San Diego yet this week, Charles, and whether they could also go winless. But Cleveland definitely at 0-9, they're more than halfway there.
Wow.
The Redskins and Cardinals.
You said schedule's done them no favor, but all but one of the games against teams over 500, and the Raiders now go 7-2. And with the Chiefs losing, they're all but locked to win the AFC West again.
And by the way, Charles, just remember they still have to play Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and Houston. So that's 3 more losses probably.
But he says that the only chance to win is against the Heats.
The Redskins and Cardinals. St. Louis scalps Washington 20-17 in overtime. With the Cowboys' recent two-game skid, the game was a battle for first place in the NFC East. Washington built up a 14-3 lead and seemed poised to avenge last year's St. Louis sweep before the Cardinals once again rallied. Then, with 25 seconds left on fourth down, Mel Gray held the ball for a split second before it was knocked to the ground. Incomplete. Game over. Or was it? The officials, Skins and Cards, hotly debated whether it was a touchdown or not. Shockingly, the refs ruled it was a touchdown. Remember, no instant replay. And just like that, they were tied. St. Louis won the overtime coin toss, never gave the ball back to Washington, kicked a walk-off field goal. That was a double whammy for Washington, as not only would they have been essentially up 2 in the division, but their next 2 games are against Oakland and Minnesota. Let's see if we can look at this comment. Yes, we do. All right, guys, take a look at this touchdown, and you make the call. Jim Hart comes up under center. You can see looking over Chris Hamburger's left shoulder. Ron McDowell is down in the three-point stance, former Buffalo Bill. Hart's going to drop back to pass. Into Mel Gray. And what is it? Is that a touchdown or a incomplete pass? The Redskins are celebrating, but the referees are debating. And Jim Hart, guys, Jim Hart is right in the ref's ear. What do you say, Chris?
I don't think it was a touchdown.
Charles, what say you?
Why not?
Because he held.
The video's not smooth. I can see this moving every half a second.
Yeah, it's jittery somehow. But here is the call. The referees say it was a touchdown.
Chris, why don't you think it was a touchdown now? What did you see that I could not?
I thought he literally held it for less than a split second. It just felt like he caught. No, he didn't. He caught. No, he didn't catch it. It was just so quick.
The rules, of course, you think about how controversial the touchdown reception rule is now, or the reception rule. It was much more clearly defined back then, and yet they still don't get it right, in my opinion. He does not come down with both feet before the ball's knocked loose. But the referees are going to debate this, and they're going to say it was a touchdown. That one official right there saying no score, number 73. But Jim Hart, right in his ear, but did Hart change that guy's mind?
Actually, it was a referee in the back, i.e. not at that area, who thought it was a touchdown.
Remember,
and then he discussed it with them.
Head ref, in 75, the head ref wears the black hat. The other officials wear the white hat. It's changed now.
And safe to say, oh, Lordy, imagine that touchdown today.
Actually, they're all wearing white hats. So, yeah. There's no way that would be called a touchdown today. With advent of instant replay, I don't even think they'd have called it touchdown live before they got into replay. Just a bad call, and it cost the Redskins a game and puts St. Louis in first place.
And maybe cost the Redskins the playoffs.
Might very well have. Broncos versus Chargers. Denver subdues San Diego 27-17. The Broncos were ticked off over last week's Raider rout and took out their frustration on winless San Diego thanks to Steve Ramsey's 2 touchdowns. The 0-9 Chargers don't have the excuse of a schedule or division as brutal as Cleveland's. They can't even beat the Giants or Patriots. One has to wonder if San Diego could beat a CFL team. Chris, could San Diego beat the worst CFL team?
I don't think they could beat a CFL team. I think Edmonton would be a 5-point. I think Edmonton or Montreal could beat these guys. Again, Cleveland has the schedule and the division. The Chargers don't have the hard division, hard schedule excuses. They're just not a good team. At least Cleveland's had to play everybody good. San Diego doesn't.
Charles, we've stated about the Browns and whether they go on 14. San Diego looks to be much worse as they're losing games against a weaker schedule. Do they go 0-14?
It's possible that they could be 0-14. It could well be.
It's a shame. And by the way, they don't play each other. It's a real shame. Could you imagine if they actually did play each other?
It would be the game of all time. Community service project.
And it would end in a tie.
Probably.
All right. Charles, we move on to the 49ers. The Bears and 49ers. San Francisco Mall, Chicago 31-3. The Bears look like Bears, allowing 233 rushing yards, and 3 quarterbacks combined to throw for 73 yards, and they had a fumble return for a touchdown. One has to wonder if this matchup will ever be meaningful for the NFC.
Hibernating around the winter time, but other Bears hibernated all year long and scored the fewest points in the NFL at 87, and have allowed 241 points. Only the Saints have allowed more points. It's amazing they won 2 games despite the point differential. Outscored 241 to 87, minus 154 point differential, the second worst, second only to Cleveland. As far as the Niners are concerned, well, the Niners coming off that Baltimore win over the favored Rams. So Rams is just and momentum can carry you further, and they took advantage of a pretty bad Bears ball club. So you're right, it could be some time before it becomes a meaningful game.
Back to the Mel Gray Phantom catch. We're not going to look at it again. We've already looked at it, but Chris has a nice quote put up here. Suddenly, as Lon Chaney turned into a werewolf, the referees called that play a touchdown. All right, we move on to Monday.
I said that call could be both controversial and unchangeable.
We move on to Monday, November 17th. We're almost there, guys. Georgia is in the Cotton Bowl thanks to Bear Bryant. And sunshine fades for the Falcons down in Georgia. Chris, Georgia, Cotton Bowl. What do you say?
Well, we know for sure they're going to play the winner of the Southwestern Conference, which is basically if Texas beats Texas A&M, Georgia will play Texas. If Texas A&M wins, however, then they'll play the winner of Aggies versus Razorbacks. So basically the Bulldogs are going to find out if it's door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3.
So we got North Carolina State is in the Peach Bowl against opponent to be announced. Possibly Big 8 runner-up. We mentioned the Cotton Bowl. Alabama will play Penn State in the Sugar Bowl. The Big 8 champion versus the Big 10 runner-up in the Orange Bowl. The Pac 8 champion versus the Big 10 champion in the Rose Bowl. Florida versus Maryland is set for the Gator Bowl. In the Liberty Bowl, you're going to have USC versus Arkansas, probably. In the Fiesta Bowl, the Western Athletic Conference champion, either Arizona State or Arizona, versus the Pac 8 runner-up. And the Astro Bluebonnet Bowl, you got the Southwest Conference runner-up versus Colorado. And the Sun Bowl is going to see Pitt versus the Western Athletic Conference runner-up, probably.
I'm going to Chris said, door number 2 and door number 3. There's all pretty good ball games here. There are no stocks, as it were, to quote Marty Hall from Let's Make a Deal.
Chris, the Bengals are favored tonight, despite O.J. Simpson playing for the Bills.
Well, they only have one loss, and the Bills have had some bad losses. The Bears only have one loss, and it's in Cincinnati.
And Joe Ferguson is questionable to whether he'll be able to play this game or not. Now, if he can't play, I just watch Phyllis, Walter, and Medical Center on CBS because the Bengals are going to mock the Bills, especially if Joe can't play.
Charles, Merlin Olsen still has the magic at the age of 35. Acting career potentially will have to wait as the Rams could make a deep playoff run. Is the Rams front four as fearsome as they've always been?
Well, they are 7-2. They are 7-2. I want to do have 208 points, which is not much compared to the Vikings, the Cardinals, the Redskins, and the Cowboys. Their defense is pretty good, second best defense in the NFC. If the Rams go all the way and maybe get the Super Bowl, their defense is going to be a key reason why.
And we're back. All right, moving along on the news. On Monday, local reaction to Mel Gray's touchdown. Big red touchdown put in gray area. As this is from the Doug Groh of the Post-Dispatch staff. Folks in Washington are talking about marching on the White House. In St. Louis, there's a great deal of praise, concern, and integrity for the National Football League officials. Of course, you see this touchdown depending on where you live and what team you root for in different lights. Should the NFL have instant replay? Charles?
Yeah, replay.
Yes.
We have the technology in 1975, but of course you won't get it until later on in the 80s. And then it's only short-lived at first. Let's see. The Falcons lose due to bad errors. And dropped balls, fumbles plagued the Falcons again. This is, of course, a paper from where are we from? The Atlanta Journal. So, of course, this is local reaction for the Falcons. Not good down in Atlanta, as a promising start to the season has just collapsed. Television brings its power to football. The Deep South Review here. TV generate Georgia-Auburn excitement, Charles. Television in 1975, it's all over the place, but it's still not yet the phenomenon of cable television and just an absurd amount of games on Saturdays. But TV does generate more excitement for games like Georgia-Auburn.
That's why in those days only just ABC, CBS, NBC, and maybe 3 or 4 local independent television stations, depending on where you live. But starting with the recent HBO coming of age as far as cable is concerned, with its focus on the movies and whatnot, it could be a start of a pretty good backlog of cable networks specializing in one different aspect. There's one for movies like HBO, and a couple of years we may see one specifically with sports, with college sports being the main focus.
Chris, the Peach Bowl's considering inviting West Virginia.
Well, they do have this rising. Well, it wouldn't be a bad idea because, Peach Bowl needs somebody. And, again, you don't have all these conferences. So you're thinking a team with a couple of losses, good but not great, is going to play in that bowl. You just wonder, would the Mountaineers bring fans to Georgia?
Bills versus Bengals. Cincinnati outscores Buffalo 33-24. Houston's upset of Miami on Sunday gave both teams something to play for. Going into this game, Buffalo could move to within one game of the AFC East, and Cincinnati needed to stay tied with Pittsburgh to stay one ahead of the Oilers. For the second straight week, Monday Night Football was treated to a breathtaking display of offense. O.J. Simpson once again dazzled with 197 yards and 2 touchdowns, including one run where he slipped on the rainy turf but still kept going. But Ken Anderson stole the show, 30 of 46 for 447 yards and 2 touchdowns of his own. The difference in this game, Joe Ferguson threw for only 106 yards, and Buffalo lost the turnover battle 2-1. Charles, since he kept pace with the AFC Central, while Buffalo not only missed a chance to gain ground on Miami, they are now in a flat-footed tie with surging Baltimore.
Bills are in trouble right now. They missed out on a goal chance, capitalizing on a rare Dolphins loss. And the Bengals goals, they had to do what they had to do after Pittsburgh and Houston won their games yesterday.
Let's look at the coverage on this play. Where is the Buffalo defender on this touchdown pass to Charlie Joyner? It's wide open.
Vinny, as I've told you throughout, the Bills are literally the NFL's worst pass defense in 1975.
And when you're going up against a quarterback like Ken Anderson, that's not
I
a good combination.
I was Bills defense is wondering what they're going to have for breakfast tomorrow morning.
I think I can tell you what happened. Two of their back secondary guys from their 74 playoff team injured before the season started. I think there's your answer.
Here's a picture of
I wonder if Joe Ferguson played this game.
He did, but again, he barely threw for 100 yards, and Ken Anderson threw for 440.
Wow.
This is a picture of Lamar Parrish putting the squeeze on the juice. O.J. Simpson.
You got to admit, Charles, you thought it was going to be a mauling. Turns out it was a very good game.
Yeah.
So that brings us to another Tuesday, November 18th, and a new cover photo. And here is a look at Mel Gray's quote-unquote touchdown catch against the Redskins.
Yep, the controversial touchdown that's going to be talked about for a long time.
Especially if Washington missing.
Chris, George Allen now wants instant replay.
Well, George Allen once said 40 men together can't lose. The question, though, is was he counting on 40 men and 3 refs who can't lose?
Charles, it's 1975. One way to change a coach's mind on a rule is to have it screw him. If more coaches end up getting screwed over by controversial calls, replay could be quicker than you think.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
The thing is, though, and we've seen this in the NFL, especially in recent with the overtime rule changes, it's usually not the team that gets screwed that pushes for the change. It's another team that proposes, like with the overtime rule in the 2020s. Buffalo's the one that seems to be losing on that, but it was the Colts that put in for the socialistic look where everybody gets the ball in overtime. TV ratings drive
That's
polls.
a team of it.
The Huskers want only oranges, so Nebraska needs to win. They don't want to go to a different bowl. They want to go to the Orange Bowl. TV is a big factor in selecting teams. Again, that comes back, Charles, the story of the haves and the have-nots. With a Big Ten runner-up out there, it might mean a lot less chances for a bowl to San Jose State or somebody like that is a great team, but they don't have the national following.
By the way, speaking of TV, it's ironically Notre Dame's not going to bowl game, and they're the TV draw of draws.
Looking at Division II playoffs on this Tuesday, Northern Michigan is in the grid playoffs for Division II. They rebounded from a disastrous 0-10 record in 74 to go 10-1 in 75, and the Wildcats, led offensively by Green Bay running back Stu Betts and defensively by Green Bay linebacker Joel Hanner. Those aren't Packers playing in college football. They are local kids. They're in the Division II playoffs. Northern Michigan. The Jets are not
to the Northern Victors.
The Jets are not changing coaches on this November 18th. They are sticking. Charlie Winter is still their man, Charles.
Wow. No,
And they just,
the Flying Jets.
I mean, I know they just lost 52-19, but what good would a coaching change with a month to go do you?
Right?
Yeah, yes, not, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Griffin is the top choice for the second Heisman Trophy winner, according to UPI writer here, Milton Richmond Sports Parade. Archie Griffin, second Heisman. Is it a done deal? Chris?
I think I remember the voting. They're not going to announce it until after the season's over. So what if he has a dud against Michigan? What if one of these other guys has a good final game? Heck, what if Archie does a run for 100 against Michigan?
Charles, who's somebody else that could be in consideration for the Heisman in 75?
I'm not at full liberty. I haven't studied up these college players that much. The NFL, as well as Major League Baseball, is my forte.
November 19th.
I think Chuck Muncie's an option, but Ricky Bell was the favorite, but they've lost 3 in a row, and Bell's lost his way out of it. Chuck Muncie could be an option, but Cal just has a couple of losses.
November 19th, the New England's waived rookie defensive end Dave Tipton, formerly of Western Illinois, signed defensive end Martin Imhoff, 3-year veteran who played with Washington last season. Doesn't sound like a 3-year veteran would be on Washington. They usually are much older. All right, let's take a look at the NFL standings now. After 9 weeks in the AFC, Pittsburgh is your 1 seed. Oakland and Miami will be. Oakland has the 2 seed by virtue of their victory over Miami. Miami the 2 seed, and your wild card team is Cincinnati. They can't play Pittsburgh, so they would go to Oakland, and Miami would go to Pittsburgh. In the NFC, Minnesota still your 1 seed at 9-0. Either St. Louis or Los Angeles are your 2 or 3, and your wild card team right now is either Washington or Detroit, depending on tiebreakers. So it's changed a little bit.
What's that?
9 weeks.
Dallas beat Detroit, but again, Washington hasn't played Detroit, and good luck trying to figure out the tiebreakers.
Yeah, as we get along, I should have what the 1975 tiebreakers were. I do have research on the 90s and stuff like that. The cover photo, Ken Anderson running against the Bills on this 19th of November. All right, we have
great game.
We have the AP. Got to zoom in. We have the UPI Major College Football Poll. Ohio State and Nebraska are still your 1 and 2. Texas A&M is at 3. Alabama 4. Michigan 5. Oklahoma 6. Texas 7. Arizona State 8. Colorado 9. And Penn State is number 10. Checking a look at the AP on this November 19th.
And look, Sparta are tied for 15th at 9-1.
San Jose State ranked.
Yep, San Jose. Moving on to the AP, Georgia is at 15 in the AP. San Jose State's not in the top 20. But your top 10 looks pretty much the same in the AP as the UPI. Small colleges, Texas A&I and North Dakota are both undefeated. So is Henderson State at 5th. And Division II, North Dakota has 60 points. Grambling, led by, of course, legendary coach
Eddie Robinson.
Eddie Robinson. I want to say John, and I knew that wasn't right. Division 3, Ithaca. We've talked about them. Widener, they're 1-2. And so that's it on your college polls after your mid-November weekend. November 20th, Mike Livingston is out. He might be out for the season in Kansas City. That means they're going to have to go with Len Dawson.
Lee Dawson.
I mean,
By the way, Chiefs still have to play the Colts. Good luck with that.
Len Dawson did win a Super Bowl, but he is up there in age. He's been playing in the NFL or the AFL since the 1959 season. So that is
By the way, what a difference a week. Think about this for Mike Livingston. 8 days ago, he leads the Monday night upset of Dallas. Now he's done for the year.
Husker,
Wow.
no thanks. A slap to their fans. Langdon Frothington shouldn't have pulled his players to determine if they were receptive to a bowl bid. You see, the first University of Nebraska football team in 1890 was unbeaten. So this is a story about 1890 Nebraska, not the 1975 Cornhuskers, but it appeared in newspapers, so it's a neat little story to look at. Monday Night Football is changed.
Here's the story. If the rumor is if Nebraska loses to Oklahoma, they might not play a bowl game. They may just skip out on the bowls if they lose to OU.
So that is where the slap to the fans came. Yeah, because what was I thinking? There was no bowls in 1890. That was what the slap to the fans would be. The fans would want to see their team play again, obviously. A new way of watching football on TV. Monday Night Football has changed the course of TV. We're in its sixth season, Charles. Monday Night Football has brought eyes to sporting late night primetime sports to national television. We've seen that with the World Series now, and it also tells other networks, gives them trouble scheduling opposite those monster sporting events.
Yep. Alex Cosell, Frank Giffen, Alex Karras. It was a pretty good commentary. Would be really adding spice to the action.
Oh, by the way, next Monday night, Pittsburgh at Houston. Another good one.
Mm-hmm.
We have some NFL business news that you can take a look at if you want to on Facebook. Pigskin Glory, football 50 years ago today, as the NFL owners went for balance sheets, as they want to be in the black, not in the red, obviously. And in 1975, by that point, most NFL teams should be making money. NFL transactions on this Thursday, Miami signed former Dallas and New England linebacker Rodrigo Barnes as they place Mike Cullen on injured reserve due to knee surgery. That should
Miami has been riddled by knee injury. Miami has been riddled by injuries. They need somebody.
Let's take a look real quick at some NCAA stats. Your total team offense. California, surprisingly, is your number one team offense. Of course, Wesley Walker, wide receiver for them. We featured him on this date in touchdown history, scoring a touchdown against USC. Your top rushing team with all the big running backs we've mentioned.
Wesley Walker. You might remember him from those '80s Jets.
Big name. Big surprise here in rushing the ball as Arkansas is your top rushing team. Not Ohio State, not Pitt, not USC. Arkansas has the top average per game of 349.2 yards. San Diego State is your top passing team. Texas A&M has your best defense. And now we're looking at your total individual offense. It is a guy named Swick from Toledo. California's Roth is up there. He threw that touchdown we talked about. Your leading rusher, however, in America is Ricky Bell from USC. Tony Dorsett is over 300 yards behind him. Archie Griffin is in 5th place. Chuck Muncie is in 6th. Gordon Bell from Michigan is also on the list. Your best passer, San Diego State's Penrose. Let's see. Any Dana Bible at Princeton. Receiving, Farnham.
Joe Roth.
Yep. Your best receiver is Brown University's Farnham. Rivera Quell from Holy Cross. Gary Fensick. Is that Gary Fensick from Yale? Maybe? No, he was a defender. He was a defender.
No, Gary Fensick was a safety.
Yeah, so that's not him, but that's...
Oh, there's a name. Oh, by the way, another name, Pat Tilley, I believe the future St. Louis Cardinal.
Oh, yep. He's featured on a touchdown catch in '85. Here we go. We do have a coach. So 2 days ago they said they're staying with Charlie Winter, and today they have fired Charlie Winter. He is out. There's no longer a winner in New York, as they have named Ken Shipp. Charles. On Tuesday they said he's staying. On Thursday he's leaving. What kind of message does that send to the Jets players?
Bad message. Lack of management. Until there is a consistency in communication between the coaching and the front office and management, I don't think the Jets are ever going to become consistent winners again.
You lose 52-19. That's not good for your job security.
Chris, what's the point of firing a coach in November, though? You really think that this is going to turn a team around going into the end of the season with nothing to play for?
I think the Jets management, or whatever Charles was referring to, I think they overreacted because I will mention some of their losses, they've been blown out. Miami, Baltimore. But again, blowout losses that wouldn't change with an interim head coach anyway.
So the NFL owners yesterday have agreed to create a draft, a supplemental draft for Tampa and Seattle, joining in the 76, allowing each of the 26 established clubs to protect 30 active and 2 inactive players. Pete Rozelle gives the 2 new franchises the first 2 picks in addition to that in the upcoming NFL draft. The decision will open up some quality players to the 2 new teams. For instance, Miami have linebackers Nick Bonacani, safety Dick Anderson, linebacker Mike Cullen, defensive tackle Bob Hines on their injured reserve list. Only 2 of those players can be protected. Tampa and Seattle could steal them from Miami. Larry Zonka, Jim Kick, and Paul Warfield, all of whom are looking for options in the NFL. They are NFL spokesman said none of them are on any of Miami's lists and hence can deal with any NFL club next season, so they could join one of the 2 new teams. What kind of excitement does this give to the expansion teams? We haven't had expansion since '68. What kind of excitement does that give Seattle and Tampa Bay, knowing that there's some good players out there on the injured list? Charles.
It is a pretty exciting pick for both the Seahawks and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But how many wins will we see out of these 2 teams next year when they begin playing the NFL?
Chris,
remember the Bengals.
Chris, picking up a potential injured player. Is that a good move, though? Because they're on the injured reserve for a reason. They're not being hidden there.
No, because what if it's a long-term injury? I mean, some guys, Frank Gifford literally missed 2 full seasons with an injury.
Okay, and that gets us through November 10th to 20th. We'll be making an announcement when episode 6, the end of November, including Thanksgiving, will air. This was a long show for a week that only had 1 weekend. This is our longest show yet, but there was a lot of news as we get closer to Thanksgiving, bowl stuff, the transactions, the WFL players still out there, expansion draft coming. Any final thoughts on these 10 days, guys? Charles.
Mel Gray.
Yeah, the controversial touchdown around the nation's capital. That's going to be forever both controversial and unchangeable.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us.
How about you, Vinny?
Thanks for joining us on this. Let me just say that Buffalo's November collapse is something that is going to haunt Bills fans as they continue just to lose games. And when there's only 4 playoff spots, 1 wild card, you cannot be losing these games. I know the competition like Cincinnati, Miami is good, but the Giants' loss at the end of October really stung them, and you're not looking at a wild card right now as you're looking up at Cincinnati after losing to them. All right, until next time, thanks for joining us, and we will see you in 1975.